The third letter was tucked under her pillow. Wren found it the way she had found the others, by accident, by the prickle at the back of her neck that had begun to feel less like fear and more like recognition. She slid the parchment free, smoothed it on her knees, and tilted it toward the candle. The handwriting was getting better. The first letter, 3 weeks ago, had been almost illegible. Letters slanting in different directions, words misspelled in ways that suggested the writer had heard them spoken but never written them down. The second had been steadier. This one had a shape to it, a rhythm, as though whoever held the quill had been practicing. The wolf, she thought, not the man. The wolf is teaching himself to write. She did not know how she knew. She only knew that the king of Hollowmere did not write to her. The king of Hollowmere barely looked at her. And yet she had been in his fortress 31 days, and 3 letters had appeared in places only someone with absolute access could leave them. Beneath her pillow, inside her sewing basket, folded into the napkin beside her bowl at the morning table. She read it twice. Then she folded it small, slipped it into the seam of her sleeve, and went to find a quill of her own. She had been writing back for 2 weeks, and she had not yet told the king. Alaric Hollowmere had been Alpha King for 11 years, and he had not slept a full night in any of them. He sat in the war room with his beater, Torvald, and 3 ranked warriors, listening to a report about grain stores he had already read twice. The fire in the hearth was high, the fortress was warm. He felt none of it. He felt only the chair under him, the weight of his cloak, the dull pull of the curse beneath his sternum, that had been there since the night his brother had opened the south gate to enemies and taken half the pack down with him. The betrayer's mark, the old wolves called it. A curse laid by his brother's dying breath, a final gift from a man who had loved him enough to envy him to death. Alaric could not trust, could not feel a hand on his shoulder without measuring whether it held a knife, could not hear his own name spoken kindly without listening for the lie underneath. The curse had a price his court did not know. Every season it took something from him. The first year, his appetite. The second, the ability to feel cold. The 5th, his capacity for joy. The 8th, his dreams. He was 29 years old and hollowing out like a tree struck by lightning that refused to fall. He had 9 months left. The healer would not say less. His wolf knew. His wolf had always known. And 3 weeks ago, his wolf had done something Alaric had not believed his wolf still capable of doing. His wolf had fallen in love. She had arrived as part of a tribute settlement from a smaller pack to the east, 6 daughters of merchant houses, sent as peace gestures to be placed in service or alliance depending on the king's whim. Alaric had barely looked at them. He had told his steward to give them honest work, fair wages, and freedom to leave on the spring thaw if they chose. But his wolf had stopped, deep in his chest, when the 5th one stepped forward. Stopped, and then leaned. Alaric had looked up. She had a bruise on her cheekbone, fresh enough that it was still purple at the edges. She had not flinched when he met her eyes. She had given her name, Wren of Marshholding, 22 years old, of marriageable age by every pack law in the north, in a voice that was steady and low and did not bend toward him the way the others had. She had been told she was a peace offering. She had walked into his fortress as though she were inspecting it. His wolf had said, in the wordless way wolves said anything, her. And Alaric, who had not been able to trust a woman's smile in 11 years, had turned away. He had turned away. But his wolf, apparently, had not. Torvald cleared his throat. "My king." Alaric blinked back into the war room. The grain report. He was supposed to be listening to the grain report. His wolf, he realized with slow horror, was somewhere on the upper floor of the fortress, doing something Alaric had not authorized. He stood up. "Continue without me. I will return. He left the war room, and the moment the door closed behind him, he stopped pretending to walk like a king. He moved fast. Up the spiral stair, past the gallery, past the eastern hall where his great-grandmother's tapestries hung. The wolf inside him was practically dragging him forward. He stopped outside a door he had walked past 100 times without looking at. He looked at it now. The room belonged to one of the tribute women, the fifth one, the one he had turned away from. His wolf was very, very pleased with itself. Alaric pressed his palm flat against the door and tried, with the discipline of 11 years of ruling a kingdom, to understand what his wolf had been doing while he was not paying attention. The wolf showed him. Letters, 3 of them, written in his own hand, but not his. Slanted, then steady, then almost graceful. Words his wolf had wanted to say. Words Alaric had never let himself even think. He pulled his hand back from the door as though it had burned him. His wolf had been courting her. His wolf had been courting her, and she had been writing back. If you're enjoying the story so far, take a moment and tap the like button. It tells the algorithm to share this with other listeners who love a slow burn, fated mate, and it means the world to me. Now, back to the king, who has just discovered his own wolf has been keeping secrets from him. Wren wrote her 4th letter that night. She wrote it at the small desk by the window with a tallow candle and a quill she had borrowed from the steward without quite asking. Outside, snow was falling on the inner courtyard. She could see the training grounds from here, empty this late. The wolves of the inner pack were asleep, or at the high table, or wherever wolves went when they were not being watched. She had read the 3rd letter 12 times. She had read all 3 letters, by candle, dozens of times. The first one had simply said, "I see you. The bruise on your face is from a man who is no longer your problem. You are safe here. Eat the bread. It is good bread." She had laughed when she read that. Actually laughed. Alone in her room, hand over her mouth, 11 days into a kingdom where she had expected to be either ignored or used. The second had been longer. "The king does not know I am writing to you. The king is afraid of women who speak to him kindly. The king has reasons. They are not your fault. I am sorry he turned away from you. He did not mean it as he meant it. Please be patient with him. He is the better part of me, and he is not well." She had stopped laughing at that one. The third, the one under her pillow tonight, said, "You write back beautifully. The man does not know yet. I will tell him soon. Do not be afraid of him when I do. He is more afraid than you will be. A." She had touched the A with her fingertip for a long time before she folded it. She picked up her quill. "Dear A," she wrote, "I have not been afraid of him. I have been afraid for him. He looks at his own court like a man counting exits. He looks at me like I am a window someone might throw a stone through. I do not know what was done to him, but I know the shape of it, because something like it was done to me. I am not patient. I am stubborn. There is a difference. Tell him that when you tell him. W." She folded it twice. She tucked it under the corner of the desk runner where she had left the second one. She blew out the candle. In the dark, she said quietly, to no one she could see, "I know you're there." There was no answer, but the silence on the other side of her door felt, very briefly, like a held breath. She was summoned to the great hall the next morning, not by the king, by the high steward, a tall, silver-haired woman named Lady Halvern, who had run the inner workings of Hollowmere for 30 years, and who did not summon tribute women. That she had summoned Wren at all was a message, and Wren, who had grown up in a house where every word her father said had been a message, understood it before she finished walking through the doors. The great hall was full. The morning court was in session. Petitioners, ranked warriors, 3 of the lesser pack lords from the surrounding territories. Alaric sat on the wolf throne at the far end, his beater at his right hand, his face carved from the same stone as the walls. His eyes found Wren the moment she entered. His wolf, inside him, snapped to attention. Alaric's face did not move. Lady Halvern stepped forward into the open floor. Her voice carried the way only a voice trained for 30 years to carry could carry. My king, there is a matter of pack rank that requires resolution before the day's business proceeds. The tribute women from Marsh Holding were placed in service 32 days ago. 5 of them have been assigned roles appropriate to their station. The 5th has been assigned no role, and her presence in the upper levels of the fortress has been remarked upon. The pack asks for clarity. The hall went still. Alaric did not look at Wren. Alaric was looking at his high steward with an expression Wren had not yet seen on his face. It was not anger. It was something colder and more patient. What is the question, Lady Halvern? Whether she is to be returned to Marsh Holding, my king, or whether she is to be elevated. The pack must know which. A formal challenge, a clean one. Lady Halvern was forcing him, in front of the entire morning court, to either disown Wren publicly or claim her publicly, both before he had spoken a single word to her himself. Wren understood the trap a heartbeat before Alaric did. She stepped forward. She had not been called. She had not been given leave. She walked into the open floor of the great hall and stopped 4 paces from the wolf throne, and she spoke before any of the warriors lining the walls could decide whether to stop her. My king, she said, and her voice was not loud, but it carried. If it pleases the court, I will answer the question myself. I am Wren of Marsh Holding. I came to Hollowmere as part of a tribute settlement. I have been in your fortress 32 days. I have been given a room, a fair allowance, and no instructions. I do not know what I am. I would like to know. A small sound went through the hall. Surprise. 2 of the lesser pack lords leaned forward. Lady Halvern's jaw tightened. Alaric stared at Wren. His wolf, inside him, was making a sound Alaric had not made in his own throat in 11 years. It was not a growl. It was something older. It was the sound a wolf makes when it has decided. He stood up. He came down off the dais, not all the way to her. The high steward was still in the floor between them, and the politics of the moment required she not be rolled over, but enough that the height of the throne was no longer between them. You are a guest of Hollowmere, he said. His voice was very even. Until I say otherwise. The next person who suggests you do not belong in any room of this fortress will answer to me directly. He looked then at Lady Halvern. Is the matter resolved, High Steward? My king, is the matter resolved? There was a beat in which the entire hall understood that they had just watched something shift. The lesser packlords were already storing it for the ride home. The warriors along the walls had not moved, but their attention had recalibrated entirely. It is resolved, my king, Lady Halvern said. Good. He looked at Wren one last time. He did not smile. But something at the corner of his mouth did something that could, in a less disciplined man, have been the beginning of one. He returned to the throne. Wren walked out of the great hall with her hands steady and her chin level, and she did not let herself shake until she had reached the corridor outside her own door, and even then, she shook only once, and only briefly, the way a person shakes off cold water. In her room, on the desk, the 4th letter she had left for the wolf was gone. In its place was a new one. It was unsigned. It said only, "That was the bravest thing I have seen in 11 years. The man does not know yet what you did for him in that hall. He will. A." She read it twice. She picked up her quill. "Tell him," she wrote. "Tell him today. I am tired of waiting for a man who is already mine." Alaric did not open her door. He stood outside it for a long time. His wolf wanted to. His wolf was very clear about wanting to, but Alaric had not been able to trust his own instincts in 11 years, and tonight was not the night he was going to start. He went down to his study instead. He lit the lamp. He sat at his desk. He laid his hands flat on the wood, and he tried to remember what his handwriting had looked like before the curse, before his brother, before any of it. He picked up the quill. He wrote, very carefully, Wren. His wolf, which had been pacing inside him, went absolutely still. He wrote, I am told you are stubborn. I find I am grateful for this, because the man you have been writing to has been failing you, and I think a less stubborn woman would already have given up on him. I did not mean to be silent for 31 days. I have been silent for 11 years. It is a habit it appears my wolf has decided to break without me. He stopped. His hand was shaking. He had not noticed. I would like to meet you, as myself. I do not know how to do this. Tell me how, and I will try. He signed it, Alaric. He folded it. He walked it up to her door himself, in the dead hour before dawn, and slid it under. He did not stay to see if she opened it. He should have stayed, because Lady Halvern, the High Steward of Hollowmere, had been watching the king's restless hours for 3 weeks. She had served his father and his brother both, and she had survived them by knowing when a king was beginning to feel something, and extinguishing it before it could change the shape of the kingdom she had spent 30 years arranging. She caught the letter as it was sliding under the door. She did not even need to read it. She knew the handwriting. She had taught the boy to write. She slid it into her sleeve. Then she went to find the tribute girl. Wren was woken before dawn by a hand on her shoulder. The High Steward stood beside her bed, candle in one hand, a folded letter held up in the other. The candlelight made the older woman's face look like a carving, beautiful, severe, and entirely without warmth. Get up, Lady Halvern said. Quietly. There are things you do not understand about this fortress, and I have decided you have a right to know them before you ruin a man's life. Wren sat up. She did not reach for her shawl. She did not reach for her boots. She kept her hands where the older woman could see them, because she had learned in her father's house how to be still in front of someone who had decided to hurt her. What do I not understand? That the king is dying. Wren's breath went out of her like a punched bellows. The curse on him takes a piece of him every season. He has 9 months left. Less if he begins to hope. Hope is what feeds the curse. Lady Halvern's voice was almost gentle. His wolf has been writing to you. I imagine the letters are very pretty. I imagine you are flattered. But every word that wolf writes is shortening the man's life. Do you understand? Wren said, very quietly, Show me the letter. What? The one in your hand. Show me. Lady Halvern hesitated. In that hesitation, Wren stood up. She was a head shorter than the High Steward. She did not have the older woman's bearing, or her authority, or her name. She had 31 days in this fortress, 3 letters from a wolf, and a 4th letter she had not yet read. She held out her hand. That is mine. Give it to me. You will not understand it. It is mine. Lady Halvern's mouth twitched. She put the letter in Wren's palm. Wren read it once. She did not let her face change. She had not let her face change in front of her father for 16 years. She was not going to let it change now. She folded the letter. She put it in the seam of her sleeve with the others. You said the curse feeds on hope. Yes. What feeds the curse before he hopes? What has it been eating for 11 years? Lady Halvern blinked. It was the first time she had blinked since she had walked into the room. What it could find, she said, finally. And when it finishes him? Then a new king is chosen. The pack continues, as packs do. And who chooses? There was a long pause. "The High Steward," Lady Halvern said, "traditionally." Wren looked at her for a long moment. "Get out of my room," she said. Alaric did not know any of this until the next evening, when his wolf, which had been calm all morning, almost contented, went suddenly violently rigid. He was in the great hall. The court was at supper. Wren was not there. She had asked for a meal in her room, the steward had said. Polite, quiet, no fuss. His wolf went still. Then his wolf snarled. Alaric was on his feet before he understood why. The hall fell silent around him. His beater half rose. His warrior's hands moved to their hilts. "My king." "Where is Lady Halvern?" "At the lower table, my—" "No." Alaric scanned the hall. The High Steward's seat was empty. So were two of her assistants. So was a third chair, at the end, occupied by a man Alaric had not approved for the table tonight. His wolf showed him, in one sickening pulse, the High Steward's face above Wren's bed, the letter in her hand, the shape of a plan that had been moving for hours. He did not say anything. He did not need to. He left the dais at a run, and Torvald and 3 warriors fell in behind him without being told. They were halfway up the spiral stair when they heard the scream. Wren had been ready. She had been ready since dawn. She had taken the bread the wolf had told her to eat and put it in her satchel. She had put on her boots. She had braided her hair tight to her scalp the way her mother had taught her, before everything had gone wrong in her father's house. She had sat by the window and waited. When the door opened, she did not look at the men who came in. She looked past them, at Lady Halvern, who stood in the corridor with the patience of a woman who had done this before. "There has been a misunderstanding," the High Steward said. "The king requires a clean break. We are simply assisting. You will be returned to Marsh Holding by morning. Your father will be compensated for the inconvenience." "My father is dead," Wren said. "He died last spring. Did your reports not mention it?" Lady Halvern's face did not move. The 2 men stepped forward. What happened next happened very quickly, and Wren remembered most of it only afterward. She remembered the candle she threw, not at the men, but at the curtain, because she had grown up in a wooden house, and she knew that men who had decided to take a woman quietly will hesitate when a room begins to burn. She remembered the iron poker she swung, because she had been taught by a woman in the Marsh Holding kitchens that a poker is not a weapon for winning, only a weapon for making time. She remembered screaming, deliberately, at the top of her lungs, because she did not know if the king could hear her, but she knew the wolf could. And she remembered the door slamming open. Alaric came through it like weather. He did not partial shift. He did not need to. He was a king in his own fortress, and the men in her room understood what they were looking at the instant they saw him. One dropped his blade. The other tried to run, and Torvald had him on the floor before he reached the corridor. Lady Halvern was already gone. Alaric crossed the room. He did not touch Wren. He stopped 3 paces away. His chest was rising and falling like a man who had run further than the stairs. "Are you hurt?" "No." "The smoke?" "It's only the curtain. I threw a candle. I needed time." He stared at her. "You threw a candle," he said. "Yes." His voice cracked very slightly. "You set my fortress on fire to make time. A small fire, my king, a very small fire." He laughed. He laughed, and it sounded like a sound that had been locked in a room for 11 years. Then his face changed. His knees buckled. The curse hit him on the floor of her room, 3 paces from her, with smoke in the air and his beater dragging a half-conscious assassin into the corridor. He felt it the way his wolf had warned him he would feel it, like every winter he had not felt, arriving at once. His hands went numb. The breath in his chest turned to glass. The betrayer's mark, which had been eating him slowly for 11 years, decided in the space of 3 heartbeats that it would finish the job tonight. Because he had laughed. Because he had hoped. Because he had run up a flight of stairs for a woman who had set his curtains on fire to buy herself 30 more seconds, and his wolf had howled with a joy that the curse could not survive. He went down on one knee, then both. Wren was beside him before he understood she had moved. She took his face in her hands, not his shoulders, not his arms, his face, the way a mother holds a child who is about to fall asleep. She made him look at her. "Listen to me," she said. "Listen. You wrote me a letter. Do you remember?" He could not answer. His jaw had locked. "You said you did not know how to do this. You said, 'Tell me how, and I will try.' Do you remember writing that?" He managed to nod. "This is how," she said. "You stay. You stay in this room. You stay with me. You do not get to die because you finally hoped." Frost was crawling up her wrists. She felt it. She had been told all her life that magic had a cost, but she had never met magic before. The betrayer's mark recognized her, recognized what she was doing, and tried to take her instead. Her fingers went white. Her palms, where they cradled his jaw, began to crack at the knuckles, fine lines of ice splitting her skin. She did not let go. "Wren." His voice was a broken thing. "Wren, your hands." "I know." "Wren." "I am not patient," she said. "Do you remember? I told the wolf, I am not patient. I am stubborn. There is a difference." The frost climbed past her wrists, into the hollows of her elbows. It hurt. It hurt the way she imagined drowning would hurt, slow and certain. She locked her jaw, the way she had locked her face in front of her father. She did not let go. Alaric's wolf. The wolf that had taught itself to write. The wolf that had been courting her in secret for 3 weeks, rose up inside him and put its full weight against the curse. She felt it move. She felt the betrayer's mark realize, very late, that it was not fighting one creature, it was fighting 2. And the woman with the cracked palms and the frost in her bones was not going to be the one who moved first. She said, into his face, very quietly, "Let it go. It is not yours. It was never yours. Let it go." The curse shattered. It did not shatter quietly. It shattered like a lake in spring, a long, splintering crack that tore through the room and through him and through the air of the fortress itself. Somewhere in the lower halls, a wolf howled, then another, then the whole pack, a sound that rolled through Hollowmere and out into the snow. The frost on her hands receded, slowly. The ice in his lungs broke up and left him in a long, ragged breath. He sagged forward. His forehead came to rest against hers, the only place they touched, and they stayed there for a long time, breathing. He said her name. She said his. That was all. Lady Halvan was found at dawn, 2 miles from the fortress, and brought back in chains. The court that had eaten at her right hand for 30 years did not look at her as she was led through the great hall. Alaric did not have her killed. He stripped her of her name, her title, and her place in the pack records, and sent her to a holding far enough north that her voice would never reach his court again. The pack called this mercy. He called it precision. A dead enemy becomes a story. An exiled enemy becomes a warning. Wren stood beside him through all of it, not a step behind, beside. The court noticed. The coronation was held 3 weeks later, on the first true day of spring. Alaric had refused to do it sooner. He had wanted her to choose it, to choose him, without the curse's shadow on the choice. He had told her, the morning after, that she did not owe him anything, that if she walked away, he would accept it. She had said, I have already written you 4 letters. I am not walking anywhere." He had laughed again. He was, the court was starting to realize, a king who laughed now. On the day of the coronation, he stepped down from the wolf throne in front of the entire pack and walked the length of the great hall to where Wren stood waiting. He went down on one knee. He spoke her name, and then he spoke the title, in the old tongue, the one no one in Hollowmere had heard spoken in 11 years. He placed the Luna's circlet on her head himself. He kissed her once, briefly, and what broke open in him was not anything that could be described in flesh. It was the door of a room that had been locked for 11 years, finally opening from the inside. He stood up. He turned to his pack. He said, in a voice the back of the hall could hear, "This is your Luna. She set my fortress on fire to buy 30 seconds of her own life. I would not advise testing her." The pack roared. Wren, beside him, did not smile. She inclined her head, the way a woman who has been underestimated her entire life inclines her head to a room that is finally seeing her clearly. She caught his eye. She mouthed, very small, "Stubborn." His wolf, inside him, was the happiest it had been in 11 years. 3 months later, on a morning warm enough that the windows of the inner solar had been left open, a letter arrived for the Luna of Hollowmere. It came from a half-brother she had not seen since their father's funeral, a man who had stood by while Wren was sent away as tribute and had said nothing. The letter was 4 pages long. It was an apology. It said the things such letters say, that he had been afraid, that he had been wrong, that the whole of Marsh Holding was speaking her name with an awe he did not deserve to share. Wren read it once. She folded it. She slid it across the breakfast table to Alaric, who read it with the small, dry smile he had developed over the spring. The smile of a man who had remembered, late in life, that he had a sense of humor. He handed it back. "Burn it?" "No," she said. "Keep it. I want our children to know what people sound like when they are sorry too late." He looked at her for a long moment. "Our children," he said. "Eventually." His wolf, inside him, made a sound that was almost a laugh. She picked up her quill. She had her own desk now, in the solar, and her own ink, and her own blotting sand. And she began a letter of her own. Not to her brother, to the Kitchens, requesting honey cakes for the afternoon. Alaric watched her write. Her handwriting, he thought, had always been beautiful. His was finally catching up. "Where are you listening from tonight? I want to know. Leave the name of your city or country in the comments and tell me which letter from the wolf was your favorite. If this story made your chest ache even a little, hit subscribe so the next one finds you. There's another alpha king waiting in the dark, and his wolf has been waiting longer than yours."